gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Well, good Monday morning, Bakersfield and surrounding communities, and everybody watching online on YouTube. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That is Sparky. Sparky, good Monday morning.
Top of the morning to you.
Are you as tired as I am?
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
It is a Monday.
Let them know what they're in for today.
We'll talk a little bit about everything. It is miscellaneous type of Monday. We'll recap the NBA playoffs over the weekend. We'll preview the doubleheader today. Some news out of Giannis's camp that we'll get into. Plus, the NBA lottery is later this afternoon. And then in the second hour, we'll touch base with the NFL as a couple games have been announced. We'll talk about local boy Derek Carr retiring and what's next for the New Orleans Saints. Plus, some news out of the UFC, ECW, and WWE Backlash was this weekend. We'll have a big jam-packed Raw tonight, so we'll talk about a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. Well, we might as well start in the world of basketball. You good?
Yeah.
It's like I walked in all loopy today. You look like you're tired today.
I just want to slap Scott Cox.
Oh, well, we all do. It is what it is. Let's get into a little bit of basketball, though. We'll talk about the games from yesterday, then we'll jump into the ones you'll see tonight. Obviously, we started with a game with the Thunder against the Nuggets, where the Thunder were able to even the series at 2 games apiece, 92-87, in a solid win that saw both teams pretty much pull out their best stuff on defense in the first quarter. The Thunder held the Nuggets to 8 points in the first quarter. I don't know how
I don't
long
think I've ever seen that.
I don't know how long it's been since I've seen that in a basketball game, let alone an NBA basketball game. But the Nuggets couldn't score at all. They went 0 for 14 for 3, 2 for 22 throughout the entire quarter. And honestly, I know we all talk about Joker and how great he is and how great he plays in these moments. But in this series alone, the guys had 24 assists and 23 turnovers. So take what you can get, I guess, is the best way to
Jungle
put that.
Ball.
This game was really, really interesting in my opinion, because you saw something out of a younger team that I don't think a lot of people thought they had. And I think they're really starting to show everybody that just because they are the youngest team in the NBA, talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder here, obviously, that they can compete with these guys who have a championship pedigree. Because usually in these games that are so low scoring, it usually goes to the team with more experience because of how easy they're able to make it look and how well they're able to formulate themselves on defense and make that final shot on offense to to push them forward. At this point, though, it looks like it's the opposite way around, in my opinion. Oklahoma City just looks really, really good.
Yeah, and then Denver kind of looks like the young, unexperienced team, which is surprising.
I don't know if it's inexperienced or just not confident. I'm going to get to that here in a second when it comes to Cleveland, because that's exactly what you saw with them in the first half. But I just, outside of Aaron Gordon, I'm not seeing the usual Jamal Murray we're used to seeing in the playoffs. We're definitely not used to, we're not seeing the Porter Jr. that we're used to seeing. It's just really weird to see because this team has talent on it. I just don't know if they have the proper coaching, obviously, to harness that talent, especially when you see guys like Joker and Russ pretty much taking over the huddle every timeout. I mean, I know we like to give LeBron-ish for this, and everyone says, "Oh, well, you don't even have a coach when LeBron's on your team." It's like, are we really not going to say the same thing for Denver right now?
As they should. I mean, at a point in that second half of that game, I thought Westbrook was taking over. I mean, he looked good for a good 5-7 minutes. I thought they were going to take over that game. And I went out back to take out the trash, came back in, and they were losing. I was like, well, damn, that happened quick.
And, they were just – it was interesting to me to see the adjustments, too, that were made by the Thunder late in the game, because obviously they lost game 2 because of some poor decision making late in the game, I guess you could say, especially with who you got the ball to for the free throws.
Yeah.
This one that did not make that mistake. In fact, Chet was nowhere near the ball. I thought that was kind of funny. They had him well behind, but they made very good adjustments to make sure the ball got into the right hands. And one thing that I saw from the Nuggets that I've never seen as well towards the end of a game, a 5-second rule. A 5-second rule with you're down by 1-2 possessions and you don't get the ball in. That's wild.
Yeah, in a playoff game.
That's wild.
That's definitely
that's a mishap. You cannot have that. I don't know. I understand. Again, you're trying to get the ball in, and they were playing suffocating defense. But you got to at least call a timeout, do something. Like, you cannot have that kind of a turnover and then allow them to go up by, I think it was 7 at the time on you with a minute left. That's not going to help.
Well, this is turning out to be a great series. I mean, it's the only one that's tied up at 2. So
at the moment, I think
at the moment,
because we got
at the moment, because the other ones are still going into game 4 tonight. Just going into, I mean, just the outlook of the series. Do you think this one is the more competitive of the other 3?
No, I really like Boston and New York. I know Boston and New York, or at least game 3 wasn't what we saw in games 1 and 2.
But they were actually hitting threes.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to get to that when we're going to talk about the game today, but I like this series. I think this series is a really interesting one to watch because you're seeing a young team really defy the odds and show everybody that just because they're young, that doesn't mean they can't make it to the championship, or at least compete with guys who have been to and won championships before. So it's really a testament just to Oklahoma City and how good they have become in a short amount of time, in my opinion.
And this is a Joker after the game.
I mean, I think we are 4-4 in the whole season against them, so we need to give ourselves a chance. We need to play physical. We need to be more physical than them, aggressive. And, of course, they're favorites. They're playing amazing. They won 6, 7, how many games won. But we need to give ourselves a chance to be close and to be like up and to just to give ourselves a chance to win a game.
You know, the Denver Nuggets missed 34 3-pointers in this game, and we've said it a couple of times when it comes to Cleveland and Boston, but it really does seem to me that the team that the 3-point shot just kind of abandons is just going to get run out of the gym like this. And I shouldn't say run out of the gym because they really did compete throughout this game. But if you really think about it, if that first quarter was anywhere close scoring wise for Oklahoma City as they are used to throughout these playoffs, they get 30, 40 points and you only scored 8, that game would have gotten ugly very, very quickly.
I mean, they made it close, but it's tied up 2-2, and we'll preview tomorrow's game. That'll be I believe the late game on Tuesday. But going into game 2 on Sunday, which I turned it off after the first half, it was just getting ugly. But I mean, when I came in this morning and prepped, I was like, okay, well, they made it closer, because when I turned it, it was 30-something points.
41 at halftime.
Well, then I turned it off before.
I'll tell you for you. Again,
so what happened to Donovan?
Donovan Mitchell got hurt at halftime, was hurt in the first half, did not return after halftime because of an ankle injury. He's supposed to be getting MRIs and stuff on it today. He himself said that he is good. He will be playing in the next game. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see how that goes. Much like Steph Curry, I know you would want to play, but if this is a muscle issue or a bone issue, that's really what's going to determine if he's going to be able to play. Plus, in a situation like Cleveland's in, where you're down 3-1, you need 100% Donovan Mitchell, not a 50% Donovan Mitchell. So we need to see what happens with that. In this game, though, you really lost it in the first half as soon as the ejection happened. So for those that weren't watching the game, there was an altercation between DeAndre Hunter and Indiana's Mathurin, where Mathurin punched Hunter in the chest for some reason. I
didn't understand.
Yeah, there must have been a scrum or some words that happened between the two. DeAndre Hunter is a pretty notoriously chill guy, though, from what I understand, and even the commentators were like, "Yeah, you would have to like really agitate him to get that kind of a reaction out of him." But there was obviously there was a scrum, and Matherin got ejected. Hunter did not. Hunter got a technical along with, I believe Turner also got a technical for jumping in and separating the situation. But after that, the crowd just ignited. The crowd got really, really behind the Pacers, as they always do. And when that happens, it's over. There's no way you can play well in that situation. That's why I don't necessarily blame Cleveland. I'm actually very happy to see that they were able to dwindle down a 40-point lead down to 20. That is at least, in lighter terms, just a silver lining. It really shows that at least you can keep up with them. But without Donovan Mitchell, that's going to be a huge, huge hill to climb. And honestly, going back to Cleveland's the best part of this, because obviously if you were playing one more game in Indiana under those conditions, you might as well pack up and just head home. There's no way.
That's what I was going to ask you, but I'll get to Windhorse and get over this Donovan injury before I get a Cavs kind of prediction. But this is a Windhorse this morning talking about Donovan's injury.
Donovan Mitchell has been dealing in this series with a calf injury. It was not serious enough to be on the injury report, but he was definitely dealing with it and admitted he was going through something. So when you see that video of him appearing to pull something, I mean, he didn't even get airborne, but the Cavs say left ankle. We'll go with left ankle. They'll know more about the MRI, but Donovan, had a calf injury last year in the playoffs, actually in the second round, was sort of coming from heavy usage rate when the team was dealing with some injuries at that time. He ended up missing a couple of games in the Celtics series when the Cavs were eliminated. Now, really, this is all about what his availability is.
I hope he plays, because Cleveland is a completely different monster when he actually is on the court. But Cleveland's built for this. They have a deep roster. And honestly, it might be a good thing for them to go into Game 5 without Donovan and potentially get a win in Cleveland. Because if you can pull off a win without your star at home in the playoffs, that's a massive
That's a game
swing.
changer.
That's a massive swing momentum-wise.
Well, Chris Canty on Unsportsmanlike this morning, try to say that a couple times, had this to say about maybe Cleveland just lets Donovan rest.
I think that this is an instance where you have to protect the player from himself, and you have to protect what's in the best interest of the franchise long term. The window is just opening up for Cleveland. I mean, you got a lot of young 20-somethings on that team. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, you guys are young. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to interrupt the incremental improvement that you've been making by throwing in a potential catastrophic Donovan Mitchell injury that would derail what you could be next season and potentially the year after that? If something happens, God forbid, to Donovan Mitchell because you push him in what would be, a small chance to try to get back into this series, then all of a sudden you're talking about the window to compete for a championship with this core of players effectively being shot. I just don't think it makes any sense. Mm-hmm. I think that there are too many good things going on for this franchise, for this organization, to risk putting Donovan Mitchell out there and something terrible happening.
I mean, I see his point. I really do. And it's a very good point that if he risks it and plays injured and makes it worse, you risk him being out all of next season or something of that nature. I just think it's a better look. I think it's a better momentum swing if you rally behind everybody else. You get Darius and Evan together and you say, hey, you two need to lead the charge this time. I need whatever the hell you can give us, and then the rest of the team's going to have your back. I think that is a better look. And honestly, the Pacers aren't a team that's going to beat you talent-wise. The Pacers beat you effort-wise, and they always have. They're going to beat you by getting out in transition and making you run and making you do all of the effort plays at excellent levels. And that is doable with people who are role players or, whatever you want to call them, because everybody is, as long as they're willing to give the effort to actually do those things, you can make it happen and beat the Pacers.
So you're in the same boat as where maybe they just sit Mitchell for Game 5 if they can pull that game out.
If he is anywhere close to 50, yes. If you get about 85, 90% Donovan, let him play. But if we're talking about anything lower than that, I say sit him at least for Game 5 and bring him back Game 6. Because honestly, I think Cleveland wins Game 5 in Cleveland. The big question is, how are you going to get over the monstrous crowd in Indiana in Game 6? That's going to be the real
which
big question.
which will be the early game tomorrow. We'll take this break real quick, and then we'll preview today's games as well as the NBA lottery and news out of Milwaukee right here on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky.
Wake up.
I can go side to side, like looking side to side. But I
Is
can't
that
bob
what you're
yet.
doing?
I can't bob yet.
We'll get you there before SmackDown gets here.
I sure hope so.
Well, I'm not gonna say my Knicks because my
I mean, you've
stomach hurts.
adopted them at this point, right?
I'll go with Tibbs, and I love Brunson. I'm still not a fan of Towns, but the Knicks, I mean, expected to lose in Boston, but I just hope they pull one of these games out of New York. I mean,
Mhm.
but they can't always miss 75 3-pointers. When Tatum was out there, he was hitting them from everywhere,
Mhm.
and they did exactly what the Knicks have been doing. Is they start out slow, barely playing any defense, and for the Celtics, they were hitting.
Mhm.
So they were down by 20 again, and this time wasn't going to come back.
No, I think actually they got down by 30 at one point, and at that point it wasn't happening because, I mean, just for context for people, the Celtics dang near doubled the amount of 3-pointers they made in this series in this game 3. Shooting 20 for 40, they had hit, like Sparky said, 23 of 100 in the first 2 games. So when you're hitting at that high of a clip, that high of volume, especially against a team like the Knicks, who doesn't, I mean, they shoot threes, but they don't like to live or die by the three. They more like to use them down the stretch if they have to. So it is a better look for Boston, obviously, to keep their lead the way they want it to. That's what they were hoping to have happen in games 1 and 2, and it just didn't fall for them. I would not rely on that going forward, though. And honestly, in my personal opinion, I think the X factor here in game 4 is most likely, like in Indiana, going to be the crowd. I think if the crowd in New York can get behind the Knicks early, they could really cause these runs that the Knicks can go on early in this game to matter a lot more. And you can get a huge 20 to 30 point lead on the Boston Celtics going into the fourth quarter for once.
Well, I would love to see that, but I really think it's that, and I mean the crowd was dead.
That's the problem.
But it was also they didn't play any defense in the first half, and they wait until the second half. I don't know, because the more I read about it, it's the same thing you were bringing up a couple weeks ago, is how Tibbs coaches and plays these, this starting 5 pretty much the whole game, and they looked fatigued, which I could understand that, but I mean they've been doing it all season, so you can't blame the loss, because not playing defense in the first half is, you're digging yourself a hole,
right,
to have to try to, pull some magic out your behind. But this was Tatum after the win.
Yeah, home court is important. Being great in front of our fans is important. How much we value their support. But at the same time, right, you want to be special. If you want to be great, you got to win some games on the road. But more importantly, it's just about responding, right? We want to be perfect. We want to, win every game. Essentially, it's not going to happen. But how do you respond to those moments? Is equally important as well.
Well, this is, I think, tonight's game, which is the early game, which you can hear right here on ESPN Bakersfield. I believe pregame starts at 4, tip-offs at 4:30. But I think this is a big game for the Knicks. I think this one's a bigger game for them than it is to Boston.
Do you think it's a must-win game for the Knicks? I know a lot of people are kind of leaning that way.
I kind of do, yeah. I think if they tie it up and then have to go back to Boston, I mean, it's going to be tough either way. But if they want to get out of this series, I think they need to have that 3-1 lead.
So I got to bounce this off you real quick, though, because a talking point that's been coming out of this series that I find interesting, because it pops up once every couple of years when we have a terrible foul shooter. But what are your thoughts on the Celtics just hacking Robinson anytime he has the ball? Because
the hack-a-shack?
Yeah, exactly. The hack-a-shack method, where you take the worst free throw shooter on their team, and anytime he touches the ball, just foul him. Just foul him, because he's going to miss probably half the basket or half the shots he's going to take. And to be honest, the poor free throw shooting that it looks like on paper for the Knicks was mostly Robinson, because he went 4 for 12.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the strategy. and it worked. I mean, when the guy's 4 for 12, I mean, I would hack him too.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But it's like, do you
It's-
feel like that's a basketball play still, though? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but I mean, it was just ugly. And it's the same thing we talked with Snacks last week,
mhm.
which hopefully we'll talk to him tomorrow because there's a lot of news coming out of the NBA. But I think this was going to be the series. I know it's only game 4 and they're up 2-1. And if you listen to any sports talk right now, the Knicks are already out. The way they're talking, Boston pulls a game out, and yeah, it was a good win, but they're still down. And I think if the Knicks are going to get by the Celtics, they're going to need this game 4
Mhm.
more than, if they can go back to Boston up 3-1, then they don't have to be backed in, because if it's 2-2, I mean, they might be in trouble.
Right. Because going back to Boston, you most likely lose game 5. And then you have to come back home and evade a loss there. I don't know. It's a really tricky situation if you're the Knicks. Personally, my thoughts on this Robinson thing real quick. I don't really care for it because
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of what we were griping of against Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama in the All-Star game, or I'm sorry, in the All-Star Skills Challenge. Granted, fair, it is part of the rules, but let's be honest. Is it really part of the game? No, it's really not. It's just like that. We all gave Chris and Victor, ish, because they went outside the box and didn't exactly do the right way, but they did it in a speedy way and broke the record. I don't like the way they did it, but they
No.
technically didn't break any rules.
They did it.
But it is what it is. But no, I do agree with you 100%. This is a must win for the Knicks. You have to go back to Boston 3-1. If you go back to Boston 3-1 and Boston's back again is against the wall, it will make it easier for you to potentially edge them out in 6. I don't think you pull it off in 5, although it would be very interesting to see them pull it off in 5.
And pull 3 of them in
Yeah.
Boston.
The questions that would come out of that series after that would stir up the entire league for the entire summer. But I just don't see that happening, the likelihood of it happening.
I mean, it is really all into how Boston shoots,
Right.
because they live and die by the 3-point.
I mean, they shot and made more than anybody's ever made in the NBA this year. When you do that, though, like I said, games 1 and 2 aren't a fluke. It really just matters how much you're in rhythm. And what we've seen in this series is, granted, they look good in game 3. It's really going to matter what they look like in game 4. Because if they can come out and shoot 50% again, which is possible when you're talking about the Celtics, they're going to be unbeatable. You can't keep up with that, even if you're the Knicks. It's dang near impossible.
Well, hopefully we come back in the morning and New York's up 3-1 and we don't have to talk too much about Boston. But to move over to the Golden State Warriors series, and I mean,
game 3 was better than we thought, though.
yes, I will say that
was very much closer than we thought. I mean, 102-97 was the final over the weekend. Playoff Jimmy was in full effect. We got 30 points out of him.
And dumbass Draymond was back.
Yeah. Again.
What do you have? 2 points?
Although, okay, yeah, and that's the point I was going to get to too. Over on Friday, we said that one of the big things that the Warriors needed to do is they needed help from outside sources, especially the young guys, which they got in that game because Kuminga stepped up and got 30 off the bench.
Yeah, he looked good.
Fantastic game from him. Now you need one of the stars or starters to do the same. Not a 30-point game, but at least get you guys in the area. This is where usually if it's 1 or 2 starters to get into double figures, it helps more. But when you got guys like Draymond, who are a leader on this team, just acting a fool and only getting 2 points a game, you need to be better about this, dude. Like, you really do. At this point in your career, we should have seen some sort of emotional development, and it really hasn't been there.
And I mean, even playoff Butler, he misses like 6 or 7 layups, which would have changed the momentum of the game. And I do want to play this clip from Kerr post game.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to generate threes. You have to gain an advantage and get rotations. It's hard for us to do without Steph, without our point guard, and in pick and rolls. And Jimmy obviously is creating plenty, but it's different. It's not the same level of stretching the defense out like Steph does. We got to find ways to score more, to try to generate more shots, and we'll look at the tape and figure that out.
If that's the case, they need to go to Buddy.
Yes.
If you want to move it out more, you need to get Buddy Hield involved a little bit more, especially from beyond the arc, because he's the best shooter you have right now since Steph is out, in my opinion.
Is this a must-game win for Golden State tonight?
I would say yes, because going into game 5 and you still don't know if Steph is coming back in game 5, that's going to be the biggest factor to me, because obviously, like Coach Kerr said, without the ability to stretch the floor, you have to rely on certain parts of your game which haven't been developed as well. So I would say that, yes, this is a must win, but I mean, it is, I think much like certain teams, if you're a Warriors fan, you're not that worried, because the likelihood of getting the game out of Ant and Julius Randle, like you got in game 3, I apologize, is a toss up. Not Ant. I mean, Ant is most likely going to come out and play the best to his ability and drop at least 20. But Julius Randle getting a triple-double, it just doesn't seem plausible 2 games in a row.
Yeah.
So I would
likely.
Yeah, I would expect it to at least swing a little bit more towards the Warriors' way if you get anything close to what you got out of Jimmy. But again, you need Kuminga to step up again, and you need somebody else, a Buddy Hield, in my opinion, to at least get hot and get you maybe a 20-point game.
So that's the guy we're watching tonight?
I think so. I think especially with the comments made by Coach Kerr. I mean, if you're worried about stretching the floor to make it happen that way, you need to go to your next best shooter. And that, in my opinion, is Buddy Hield. And he and Jimmy have already shown they have great chemistry. They have great teammate work. It just, you have to make it happen on the court.
Yeah, those are the 2 games that I'm looking forward to. And luckily they're back-to-back tonight. Hopefully I'll be watching Raw on one TV and
a game
on the basketball on the other. But so do you think this is it's more of a big game for New York than it is than Golden State?
I think so. I think this is I think Golden State, everyone's already writing them off because of the Steph injury. But I think New York has a legitimate shot at dethroning the King here on the East Coast. I think genuinely do.
If Golden State and if Bobby's the one, or I think if they can step up and pull this and even up the series, then it's a whole nother game.
Again, yeah. Although unlikely, I really want to see the crowd get just amped in Madison tonight. If you don't see these people in the Garden go off, it's going to really it's a disservice to your team. It really, really is.
Where you at, Spike?
Exactly. Like I know you're at the court every game, but we need the rest of the fans to get into it too. You got to at least rally them, do something.
It was funny. They if you watch the game, they kept showing Tracy Morgan, and every time he would take a bite of something and like look away, it was. I love Tracy Morgan, but I didn't know he was a full-on Knicks fan as much. He said after the game, it was I think it was right before Saturday Night Live. They did an interview with him outside Madison Square Garden, and he said, "It's over, it's over." So he was already giving up. But I think that if the Knicks can pull off the game tonight, and I'll make a bold prediction, but I think if they lose, it's over.
See, the Knicks fans are a little over dramatic, as they are known to be in New York, but it is just, I don't think it's over. The series is definitely not over. If they can win tonight and win game 4, go back to Boston up 3-1, you have a very legitimate chance at dethroning the Celtics. I do agree with you, though. If you go back losing both in the Garden, now we're back to a 0-0 game, and I don't see you beating them 2 out of the 3 times.
No. So that's the Boston Celtics at New York at Madison Square Garden. That's tonight. You can hear right here on ESPN Bakersfield. Pregame starting at 4, tip off at 4:30, followed with the Timberwolves at Golden State. So after this break, before these games, it is NBA lottery night. So we'll run down the chances, and if this number 1 team, whoever picks, the wins the lottery, are they in talks maybe with Milwaukee? Because Giannis broke his word this morning and said that he is looking around. So we'll talk about that and maybe which teams you think he'll land on if he gets traded. Right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back. This is the early bird special. Or he's trying to put you to sleep. Good morning. I love it.
So Giannis, we got into it a while back, but it looks like he's gonna at least explore the option of I think after Dame's injury, it kind of made it clearer for him because it looks like Lillard's probably going to be out next season,
Mm-hmm.
at least the majority of it.
Mm-hmm.
So this morning they came out and said he will explore the best fits outside of Milwaukee. But it's kind of ironic how he announces it the day of the NBA lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at the chances, the lottery odds, and they have the top three, which is Utah, Washington, and Charlotte,
Right. All at 14%.
all at 14. and then a close 12.5 with the Pelicans and 10.5 to Philadelphia.
Mhm.
You think if any of those 5, whichever one has a better chance of getting Giannis, or is it going to be more of a contending type team that gets Giannis?
I feel like we're going to get more of a contender. I realize that, yes, the allure of having a top 5 pick obviously is always on the table. But in this situation, I think you're actually going to go down a little bit more because at number 8 would be the Houston Rockets due to a trade that they made with the Phoenix Suns. Now, granted, yes, Giannis absolutely will warrant at least one first round draft pick, if not a top 10 and multiple others. So if I'm the Houston Rockets, I'm teeing something up with that number 8 pick. You don't need to pick somebody in this draft, especially if Giannis is on the table. And honestly, I mean, we've talked about it off air, but our top 3 picks for or teams for him to at least flirt going to would be Miami, Chicago, and Houston.
I think Chicago is a reach.
I
would
like
love
Chicago.
it. I would love it. I mean, obviously, I would love to have Giannis in Chicago, but I was also looking at other teams that, I mean, if Chicago gets lucky and pulls a top 3 pick, which is it's going to be
Very, very,
very rough. I
unlikely.
think they have like a little over a 1% chance, which
Yeah.
crazier things have happened. I was listening to Unsportsmanlike when I was here this morning, and they were saying, what if Dallas, gets lucky and pulls the first pick, and they can use that to maybe maneuver Giannis to Dallas, which would be insane.
It would be interesting. I mean, especially pairing him up with Anthony Davis, but I don't know. I mean, you have a 1.8% chance of getting in getting the top pick right now. And like you said, crazier things have happened. So I guess there's always that possibility. I don't know how well that would fit for Giannis's situation. I think any team getting Giannis is a benefit. You're going to get the best player at his position, but you want to also pick pick a place that Giannis is going to actually mesh with and have a chance to get something done.
A chance to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I think Houston is a better choice than Dallas.
I think Houston is pretty much the overall probably best fit.
But who do you give up to actually get him?
Exactly. And, besides Chicago, I was maybe thinking, what about the Knicks?
The Knicks would be interesting, but I think with all the roster moves you made last year to get Karl Anthony Towns and all those other guys here,
and what it would cost.
Yeah, I think it's too much of a move right now, especially since they're focused on making a run this year. If the offer's on the table that they obviously like, they'll pull the trigger. But I just don't see that fitting. Or I'm sorry, I just don't see a move fitting with the Knicks right now.
Yeah, and I was reading up after ESPN broke the story this morning about Giannis exploring the options. The decision makers for all NBA teams, they all think it's either Chicago,
right,
or Houston. But once again, Miami. We've talked about them since they got out of the playoffs, and you were saying the same thing. They're one superstar away. But what would it cost, Miami to get a player Giannis? Because then you trade maybe 2 or 3 of your playmakers and a first round pick or whatever for the next 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Are then they're hurting where they only have Giannis?
I say, and this is just me, package up something with maybe Bam Adebayo, make it a little interesting for Milwaukee. Now, I think obviously you would like to keep Tyler and Bam together, but if you had to pick one to keep, I'd pick Tyler. I think Tyler has the bigger upside, and I think really his game would bounce off of Giannis's a little bit better. And if you can package something with a couple draft picks to just lure in Milwaukee and get that trade done for Miami, it would vastly change your team's trajectory in the East. Because really all you need is one superstar, and they would at least be in the top 6. I genuinely believe that.
Well, out of the, let's say, 3 teams with the better chances or better odds to get the first pick, I mean, Utah, the Wizards, and the Hornets, you know, which team do you think would be a better fit for Cooper Flag?
Probably Utah. I think Utah is most likely the best choice for Cooper, but I don't know. Like all of those places
Can you use him?
yeah, could really use a guy like Cooper. And honestly, the Jazz have been in the playoff hunt the last couple of years. They just had a really bad year and a half. And it's really just getting a guy like Cooper would just ignite your team going forward. Every team that's in the top 5 could benefit from a guy like Cooper Flag, though.
And I know Dylan Harper has been the strong
Yes, and
choice
his
at 2.
his teammate Ace Bailey as well is up there. I don't know exactly what these guys think about in the NBA when it comes to the draft. That's the one thing that I really don't follow that much is how this all goes down and how like the mindset of a lot of these scouts and front office members in the NBA. The NFL is a little bit easier to figure out than the NBA is because I don't know, it's just a smaller draft process, and obviously everybody's looking to hit every single time rather than just kind of think, maybe we could take him based on potential. There's not a lot of that in the NBA, so I personally think Cooper Flag goes most likely to Utah, but I mean, again, the first 3 picks all have 14% chance to get this number 1 overall pick, so it's not a runaway.
Come on, Bulls. Come on, Bulls. Lucky Monday. Come on.
I mean, again, this is what we love about the lottery. This is what makes it so interesting. And honestly, I know everybody has their grievances against lottery, saying it's fixed and all that type of stuff. Totally get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. When anything is brought up to chance, there's always that ability to say it's rigged.
Well, that's why I brought that up, because this on Unsportsman like this morning, they were saying, do you think it's rigged if Dallas wins the lottery today? Like, well,
I mean, again, there were talks of that when Cleveland had won the number 1 overall pick multiple times back in the Kyrie Irving days. And I agreed with it back then. I was like, this is weird. I don't know why we keep getting the first overall pick. We're nowhere close. I was like, I'll take it, but no, we were nowhere close. And I mean, it's not like they benefited from him. We got Anthony Bennett. Anybody remember that guy? Yeah, exactly. No. But no, it's just like it's
a lottery, baby.
It's a lottery, exactly. I wouldn't necessarily say it's rigged, but at the same time, like if you're gonna sit there and tell me that it's not heavily skewed towards certain players, I'm gonna say shenanigans because look at Victor Wembanyama.
Yes.
Well, like there ain't no way that wasn't specifically chosen.
Yeah. Well, before we move away from basketball, we did get 2 texts, and they're both taking shots at us. So,
yay. Go for it.
Call or text in anytime during the show, 661-842-2000, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and even TikTok. Just look up the early bird special. But the first text says Cavs losing 5. It's over.
Yeah. Again, I agree with you. I'm not sitting here saying we come back. It is not looking good for the Cavaliers.
And next one was same thing. Sorry, Spark. Boston ties it up tonight, which could very well happen. I mean, they weren't even supposed to get this far. So, I mean, the Knicks weren't expected to win 2 games in this series. So
this is very much true. The fact that they're in the driver's seat right now is what shocks everybody. I hope they win.
Me too.
I think it would be a much more interesting situation for the East.
It'd be more entertaining for the playoffs.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking, because I was really contemplating this last night while watching the Cavs game. I was like, are we really about to get a Knicks-Pacers Eastern Conference Finals? All of this talk that myself and everybody else in the media has said that it's Boston and Cleveland, baby. It's Boston and Cleveland. If both of these teams get bounced in the second round by the Knicks and the Pacers, good Lord, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, first off, ESPN is going to explode because every Knicks fan on the planet works for ESPN. So that's going to be unbearable, especially for you Stephen A. Smith haters.
I was just going to say Stephen A. will be all over that.
All over it.
But we've got some news out of baseball right after this break. The early bird special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. And welcome back. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. And real quick, we got some news in the world of baseball. Apparently, that was abrupt. Good lord!
I forgot to get the clean version, so that was a tough decision. But I
got you. Well, it makes a lot of sense. It is what it is. Real quick, the Rockies have finally moved on from their manager, Buck Black. I mean, sorry, it threw
Was
me
that
off
not
a little bit.
expected?
It was not expecting that. Anyways, Bud Black no longer with the Colorado Rockies after a historically bad start, going 7 of 33 in the
Do you know
first
how
40
historic?
games. How historic, Sparky?
The worst 40 game start to a season in the modern era since 1901. They are number 2. And the only other team that started out worse is the 88 Orioles, which were 6 and 34 by a game.
See, and this is we had a firing already though. This is why I'm like, where you been? Like the Pirates.
What are you waiting on?
The Pirates had let go of their manager, and at least I think they had at least double the amount of wins that the Rockies have. This has been embarrassing for the Rockies organization. It's a really, really bad look. I just obviously you're not going to turn this season around. I really don't think you do, but at least fight for, I don't know, 30 games, get 30, 40 wins out of this season. I mean, come on, it's baseball. You can't be letting up 40 plus losses in 50 games. That's
They
ridiculous.
just beat the Padres.
Yeah, then the Padres slapped them 21 nothing.
I was gonna say, and then
those like, yeah,
ugly.
that's fantastic. Thanks. Like, I don't know, again. And this is one of the only things that I don't understand when it comes to the Rockies organization. You guys have one of the biggest handicaps when it comes to hitting at home. You have higher elevation, which means the ball travels farther. How do you not hit more home runs than everybody in the league? How? Half of your games are played in a situation where everybody else who comes to play you crushes home runs too. I'm not saying you guys have to win the games. That's not the problem. I get it. Everybody else crushes home runs on you too. My question is, how do you not have the number 1 home run hitter every single season? How? How does that not happen? I just don't get it.
I mean, the Rockies have been outscored by 128 runs this season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. And the third base coach, Warren Schaefer, will serve as the interim manager for the rest of the season. And it's not a big surprise, but like you said, it's probably I was expecting it probably a couple weeks earlier, but
again, this is an organization that really hasn't had a super great player since Troy Tulowitzki. I mean, I know Trevor Story, I believe, was on the team for a long time in his early years. That was the real big star that they've had. But the Rockies organization has been one of those teams that have just faded in the last couple of years and has not been able to put it together. This is long overdue. I know Black has been with the team for a long time, so you go with longevity. But you needed to make a move at some point, especially when the rest of the division have already hit 20 wins. Everybody else in the division is kicking ass right now in the NL West. It's pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie about that. But if you're the Dodgers or the Diamondbacks or really anybody in this division right now, you're looking at the Rockies as an easy 3 wins. And that shouldn't be the case. It really shouldn't. So this is a good move for them going forward because obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, hopefully this will get a fire under the team and actually get some wins in the win column. But you had to do something. This was just getting really, really embarrassing.
And NASCAR was at Kansas Speedway this weekend. Kyle Larson pulling out the win. He topped it over Christopher Bell in the last 2 laps, but he led pretty much the whole day.
A guy named Kyle won NASCAR.
Kyle won NASCAR.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
So the updated standings, Larson is the leader with William Byron and Christopher Bell second and third. But there's some news out of the NFL. Surprise. We've got the first 2 games as the rest of this schedule come out Wednesday. So we'll go over that and much more right after this.
Welcome back. This is the Early Bird Special, Hour 2. And don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube as well at the Early Bird Special. Go check us out. Subscribe, follow, all that type of good stuff. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as well. But we got to jump into the world of football because, we were talking about it on Friday. We were wondering what was going to happen with the future of our own hometown boy, Derek Carr here. But he made a decision over the weekend that shocked me, at least. He announced his retirement after 11 years in the league.
I was not expecting that. He walked away from $30 million.
Yeah.
He got his $10 million for the March bonus. And we've all kind of tinkered around the topic of his injury, but didn't think it was, career ending. I don't know if it was the timing, or I know there's some family stuff going around with the personal stuff. But I was not expecting that, especially right after the draft.
I thought it was interesting that he didn't want to do the surgery on the shoulder, but I figured that was more because he could rehab it instead, maybe get on the field a little bit sooner. But I'm assuming this was more of a, you know what, I think I'm done because no matter what I do, I'm moving uphill, if that makes sense. Like, he's going to have to fight harder than he's fought in this career just to get a chance at a starting job that honestly should be just given to him.
Yeah.
If you really look at the quarterback room in the Saints right now, because I'm sorry, New Orleans fans, if you think Tyler Shuck is going to get you anywhere, I don't know what to tell you.
It is an interesting story because I know he was unhappy on how the media and not just in New Orleans, but overall, he was unhappy with how they were attacking him.
Right.
Like they were at 1 week, they were talking like how he put the Saints in a bad situation going into the draft. And I was like, that doesn't sound like Derek Carr.
That's not Derek's. No, that's not how Derek rolls whatsoever. And honestly, maybe that was a part of it too. Maybe he's just fed up with having to deal with that.
Yep.
Because, if anybody has met Derek, he's a pretty low-key dude, and he doesn't like that type of lifestyle. So maybe he was just fed up with it. Maybe he's like, you know what? I've gone 11 years. He's started every year. Like, he's never really had a step back in his career outside of the injuries. He was at one point talked about as potentially being an MVP candidate, even though it didn't work out due to breaking his leg, unfortunately. And honestly, he's the Raiders' all-time leading passer. He doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. The guy's, honestly, in my personal opinion, Hall of Fame career, not so much, but a solid starter.
Probably not, yeah.
Arguably, probably one of the better starting quarterbacks in Raider history. I don't know, Raider fans, you guys chime in. Do you guys believe DC's one of the better quarterbacks in your guys' history?
Yeah, JR.
I don't think that he's never won you a Super Bowl.
Is Derek Carr a Hall of Famer?
No, I wouldn't say Hall of Famer. That's not getting crazy.
One of the better quarterbacks in Raiders history?
Raider Ring of Honor for sure.
Yeah,
I would say. I
was surprised when they showed the stats. I didn't know he's never won a playoff game.
No. Again, well, he never really was an opportunity.
Yeah, he had one chance, but that probably is one of the main reasons he wouldn't make the Hall of Fame. But
he went 77 and 92 as a starter. Like that's not going to get you into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and he had a better career than his brother.
For 100,000%, but his brother was
set up to not do anything.
Let's give David a little bit of credit here. That man was not given anything,
any opportunity to succeed
at all. But Derek, 41,000 yards. 250 touchdowns.
I know there's some Raider fans out there, so text in 842-2000. Let us know how you feel about the Carr retirement. But I was going to bring this up because the Saints have a new coach, a new regime with Kellen Moore, which is supposed to be, the offensive-minded type of coach. And, he finally hit the podium this weekend and had this to say on Carr's retirement.
As we've gone through this whole offseason, Derek's had to go through a lot just as you go through this process. And obviously making the decision ultimately to retire from the National Football League after an 11-year career. I mean, first of all, you respect and appreciate so much that Derek's done in this league, and for the way he's done it, the on-the-field performance, the off-the-field person that he's showcased, and the impact he's had on so many people in this profession is really, really special. And so certainly, coming here, I've always had so much respect and appreciation for him. And as we've gone through this process, obviously this is how it kind of ultimately was settled. It was really good communication through the whole process as far as navigating this. Again, challenging circumstances with him being injured at the end of the year, and then just kind of navigating things throughout the whole offseason process. And so, I think Derek, the people that are a part of his life, have communicated really well with the Saints. I think there's been really good communication. So, we feel like it was done the right way.
And he mentioned that several times because that was the headline. Is a lot of people in New Orleans are saying, he wasn't telling the team that he needed surgery and that he doesn't want to have the surgery and blah, 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 blah.
Well, he figured out about this injury late, right? Is what the story is saying, that he was working out postseason and then figured out he had a messed up shoulder. So, I mean, maybe he legitimately didn't know he needed surgery until later on. So, I mean, again,
and that has been a highlight, is that he doesn't want to have the surgery.
Right.
So,
I mean, now it doesn't matter if he's retiring. He can have the surgery or he cannot have the surgery. It's really
and stepping away gives the team, 20-30 million in the cap space. So
True.
Does that, I mean, before I even say that, because once I say this player's name, it's going to go to left field. But coach had this to say about, we talked about the competition for the Saints quarterback room. As of right now, Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler,
yes,
and Jake Hayner.
I think it's Hayner.
So, I mean, that's probably not the quarterback room you were thinking you were going to have when you took this job in New Orleans. But this is Coach Kellen Moore talking about, the quarterback room.
We're going to let all three of these guys roll, and they've all earned these opportunities. We'll let Jake, Spencer, and Tyler, all three kind of go through this process. Again, we'll play patience, let these guys compete, let them get into training camp, and naturally these guys will kind of take care of itself.
I think it's kind of funny when the best quarterback, your quarterback room is your head coach. And that's not saying a whole ton.
No, it's not.
But again, as it sits right now, if this is the room that they're going with in New Orleans, I think the ball goes to either Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck. Yeah. I would think Spencer would beat out Tyler for the starting job, but we'll see what we will see as the preseason continues. I think, though, because this is the question that I was kind of posed and was mulled around over the weekend, does this put the Saints back into consideration for Aaron Rodgers? Because now with Derek completely out of the way, your quarterback room is, I mean, which one is worse, the Saints or the Steelers? It's not by much. I can tell you that right now.
I know they've already said they will not trade for Cousins.
Nope.
So, I mean, is that, say you're Aaron Rodgers and, Pittsburgh is looking like Pittsburgh without a quarterback. I mean, they've got DK Metcalf. I mean, they probably have a better wide receiver room just by a tad. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, I mean, are you entertaining the opportunity to go to New Orleans over Pittsburgh?
Honestly, I think you are. I think you're entertaining better division or easier division, I should say, and probably a better team, arguably. And to be honest with you, the dominoes that I see kind of falling from all this just kind of fits a little bit better. Aaron goes to New Orleans, Atlanta trades Kirk to Pittsburgh, and everybody's happy. You know what I mean? Like,
especially Falcon fans.
Because Falcons would never trade Kirk to New Orleans. The interdivisional trades just don't happen like that, especially with starting players. So it just wouldn't happen that easily. And I think Pittsburgh would be a really good spot for Kirk Cousins if they needed somebody like him. And honestly, I think Aaron's offensive play fits better in New Orleans' scheme than it does in Arthur Smith's scheme in Pittsburgh.
Especially with you have Alvin Kamara. And I mean,
Michael Thomas is still on the team, I believe.
How crazy would it be if he just says, I'm retiring too?
I mean, that's also a possibility. That's the thing that everyone seems to just kind of dismiss is during that conversation with the Pat McAfee show, he really did seem like he was contemplating going and retiring. That this was it. He was going to hang it up. That is entirely on the table for Aaron Rodgers as well. So we'll see in the next week. But I genuinely believe now, especially with this move by Derek Carr and retiring, and congratulations on retirement, by the way.
Yes, sir.
But I think New Orleans is now very much back on the table for Aaron.
Well, Jeremy Fowler had this to say, and he doesn't really believe that Carr's done.
I'm never going to be in a position to say that somebody was using an injury as an excuse to do something. You know, these are players that go out there and put it on the line. Derek Carr has always been a tough player who's fought through a lot of injuries and always been available. You know, really this is the only season I know of that he didn't play this significant amount of games. You know, he's always been a 16 or 17 game guy. So because of that, you know, we'll take it at face value. But like when he was looking to get out of New Orleans in early March, did he not know the injury then? You know, that's a question I have.
Again, I would never sit there and say that he's using the injury to get out of a contract. I know that there were certain situations that have happened in the past where people have used retirement to get out of teams. Brett Favre.
Yeah.
But
I would definitely, if it was a different player.
Yeah, I don't see that being the case with Derek. I really don't, especially with the videos and stuff that were released over the weekend with his wife doing the whole first day of retirement stuff and all that. I thought that was really cool, but I think he's taking this seriously. I think that this is genuinely going to be the time that he retires. Because let's be honest, like the Watt brothers, a lot of these players are seriously considering retiring earlier than a lot of these older guys do to preserve their body and stop the likelihood of CTE and stuff like that ruining them later in their lives. So maybe that's something that came up in conversation. Maybe Derek had a real serious sit down with his wife and said, you know what? I think it's time. 10, 11 years in the league as a starter is long enough. And I've put everything that I gave everything I could to the game of football. And I think it's just time to move on.
I mean, he's an athlete. He's a hell of a quarterback, but I can see just like most quarterbacks that retire young, I mean, they take a year off and, maybe he skips the surgery and see how he feels next off season. And, if the opportunity is there and a perfect fit, maybe we do see him back. But I think you're right. I think, him being such of a big family community type guy, his brothers all do the same thing. They're all community guys. They all work with, other schools with football. They're all into, their alma maters. And I think, maybe it's perfect timing for him, before the injuries start piling up. And, the Saints weren't going into this season to be a favorite to do much. Maybe he steps away from the 30 million. He's got 200 plus million just in football salaries. I mean, maybe this is a perfect time for him to be with his family. We wish him the best.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I know we say young quarterback. The guy's 34. I mean, in NFL years, you're getting up there. And at this point right now, again, your career has no blemishes, in my opinion, outside of the injuries and your record. That's the only thing that people could really hold against you. I say go out on your own terms. Yep. You went on a starter. He didn't have to go through the whole Kirk Cousins situation where he had to be a backup to somebody.
Didn't have to deal with a whole new offensive scheme,
exactly.
Relearning everything.
He did everything on his terms, made his money, and ran with it. I think it's just time. I think he did a great job with his career, and just it's time to move on to the next thing. And I think that's just going to be a cool thing to see going forward. So I'd say I'm with you. I'd just say congratulations and well done on a great career. And for anybody who, is considering, oh, maybe he comes back. Maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he does take a year off like people think and he comes back for one last ride. I highly doubt it, though. It just doesn't happen as much in football as it does in other sports.
Well, we'll take this break. I know the NFL season will be kind of sprinkling throughout the week, kind of like what they always do. They say the announcement's Wednesday, but we'll probably know half the season schedule by tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk about the first two games that were released right here on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. surprised this wasn't the wake up song today. Wow. Okay. Hi.
I put you to sleep with Childish Gambino.
Yeah, gotta wake me up again.
Wake you up. So a couple games were released a bit early, like they usually do. But the opening game, the Thursday, I believe it's September 4th, will begin the season with the Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, where are we? What country are we in now?
No, that's just
Oh,
the
it's just a
Thursday
time.
game.
Okay, cool. It's in the States.
But
Okay.
this year we'll do the Friday game in week 1, and that's the game that will be in Brazil.
Okay, so this is the YouTube game that we were talking about last week that you can watch on YouTube for free, which would be the Chargers and the
Chiefs.
Okay.
Chiefs and Chargers.
All right. Well, at least it's a semi decent rivalry game. I could get behind that one a little bit.
And it counts for a Chargers home game. So the Chiefs won't have to go to LA this year.
See, I feel like it should be the other way around. I feel like it should go to the team that was better as the home team because I don't know. It feels like a little bit of a disadvantage, I guess is the best way to put it, for the team that has to give up a home game to play these overseas games.
Not only have to give up a home game, but it's against your rival in the division. That's kind of tough.
So yeah, I feel like you should have made the Chiefs give up their home game for this one. But I guess I don't know. Arrowhead maybe is the bigger attraction, or maybe the Rams needed an extra home game this year.
Well, the NFL will kick off the Eagles Cowboys Thursday, September 4th, followed with the Friday, September 5th game with the Chiefs and Chargers. And I know, was it the Chiefs last year or the year before where they lost the first game of the season? And then, so hopefully, I mean, I know we have a ton of Charger fans here in Bakersfield.
They're growing in number.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the
where
more
all y'all have been are coming out of the woodwork now.
It's like the majority of our guests are Charger fans, which I had
know.
no idea.
So I'm like, is this a running gag? Everyone just coming in and telling us we're Charger fans? Like, I don't know.
But I mean, we'll know more about the regular season throughout the week, so we'll sprinkle it in as they come out.
Do you like the fact that they make this an entire spectacle, getting the schedule out there like this? I mean, we talked about it on draft day, or the day after the first round, I should say, when they stopped the draft for a 10-minute period for two of the young reporters to come out and tell everybody what day the schedule was going to be released.
That was the stupidest thing.
I know. So I didn't want to get rude about it, but it is what it is. It's not their fault. I get that the NFL realizes it is the most popular television show on TV.
And it's like Trump coming out last week about the Washington getting the draft. I'm like, okay.
I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm not excited for that.
No,
I'm not excited.
That could have been
Trump.
a tweet. We didn't have to slow down the whole damn day to hear about it.
I pray they only allow Trump to do the first pick. I pray you don't let him do the entire first round.
That would be that'd be a Saturday Night Live skit just waiting.
It'd be a Saturday Night Live skit mixed with Key and Peele. It'd be so great.
But the just over miscellaneous news in the NFL, the Raiders did bring back Jalen Smith after he had a tryout. He sat out last year, and he was invited to the rookie mini camp and made the team. So good for him.
I like seeing that. I mean, this guy, when he came out of Notre Dame, I really wanted Atlanta to take him in the second round because he was one of those guys that was slept on and really slipped should have been taken in the first round of that draft. But injury history and stuff like that has deterred his career. This might be a good pickup. We have to see how he has really progressed from his injuries in his Dallas days. Because when he played for Dallas and was a starter, he was a problem on defense. He was one of those guys that would swarm to the football and would absolutely just make plays for you when you needed it. But for the last couple of years, I mean, injury riddled. So we have to see how the knee holds up and how well he can move. Because right now at the linebacker position, it's less about how much you can stuff runs and it's more about how much you can keep up with tight ends and wide receivers. So,
and another weird story out of New York. I know that Quinnen Williams and his brother Quincy both play for the Jets.
Yep.
And I read that there's a third brother, Giovanni Williams, who got a workout with the Jets. So it'd be crazy to have you and your two other brothers, all three brothers, playing for the Jets.
Okay, so is Quentin trying to be the Giannis Antetokounmpo of the football world?
Yes.
Is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Like okay. Again, if he benefits your team, then I don't see why not. But if you're just giving away roster spots, which I guess the Jets are probably known for at this point, I mean, if
Ouch.
well, what call a duck. I'm sorry. Like, you guys haven't exactly been successful the last couple years, and it hasn't been because of your roster moves while you guys are terrible. But if you're gonna give out workouts and stuff like that, that's fine as long as he actually benefits your team.
Well, as we brought up the Jets, this story I had to screenshot it because I was driving up the canyon. But we talked about Jets wide receiver Alan Lazard.
Potentially following Aaron wherever he goes. Yeah.
Potentially, he was on the report said he was on the Steelers' eye. They were watching him, and just in case Aaron goes to Pittsburgh, he's going to try to bring a couple of his boys. And their Steelers safety, Deshaun Elliott, is not a fan of it, and went to Twitter and he said, "This guy is so ass."
Oh my Lord.
So he's not even made the trade yet, and he's already talking crap. So, I mean, does that type of childish kind of, talk, you think that affects anything in Aaron Rodgers' mind?
Not necessarily in Aaron's mind. Aaron's one of those people I feel like he doesn't care. He just drowns it all out and kind of lives his life the way he wants to live it, which I kind of envy at points, to be honest with you. But I think this is a testament to why we need to keep certain people off of social media. Because although your feelings are valid and you should be able to share them, this isn't going to look good on you. Not just on, like, no one really is going to take your opinion into consideration when all you're doing is just trying to make another guy look bad. So, like, we all know Allen's not the best wide receiver. No one's sitting here saying that he's a good wide receiver for your team. It's just a story.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't even happened yet. Let's wait. If this actually happens and your team makes a move for Alan Lazard, then you can release the tweet saying, "What are we doing?" But your team hadn't even made the trade yet, dude.
No,
like, chill.
You think if that's the number one problem with you right now, when
Right.
you don't even have a quarterback,
and you're worried about the wide receivers being traded for.
Exactly.
Like, let's calm down, dude. Like, don't get me wrong. I know you guys are probably in disarray after trading away George last week, but
which I don't even want to get into that because he went off on the Steelers over the weekend as well. But before we get into wrestling and UFC, I did want to throw this out just to see if anyone has any input on it. But the NCAA is considering lifting its ban on gambling on professional sports. Currently, NCAA athletes, coaches, and their staff are all prohibited from betting on pro sports played at any level. The potential rule change marks a significant shift from the NCAA's traditionally strict approach. But two main concerns come up when they talk about this. One is new rookies who have been previously allowed to bet on professional sports will need to suddenly stop as soon as they get into the NFL. And, we've had, I believe the last 3 years, we've had suspensions because of this. And the second one is, the relationships these players have, whether they're in their second or third year in college, but they have a relationship with whether it's their two other brothers that play on a football team already, or, that's would be into like some insider information,
right,
that they have flagged in the past. So what do you think? I mean, does this something that will obviously benefit the NCAA because the money that's involved with it? But do you think that, I mean, it seems like when it comes to betting, it shouldn't be allowed in all sports.
No, honestly, I don't.
Especially these young kids.
I don't get it. I don't understand why we need to be betting on everything. But I'm with you in a sense of it doesn't look good. And why are you going? They're just going to find a way to do it in the pros. Because if you're doing it for 3-4 years in college and then you're just told when you get to the professional level you can't do it anymore, people are just going to say, well, then I'm just going to pass it off to my homie over here who's going to make my bets for me and, just do it just like they do. So that's why I'm like, betting is really just starting to take over all of sports, which is really, really bad to see, in my personal opinion. But it's one of those things that we're just gonna have to kind of bite the bullet and get over, because it is part of the game. Sports betting is part of the world, and it's not going anywhere. So I don't think this is a good move for the NCAA, to be honest with you, because of just what it looks like. Because I mean, why are we allowing college kids to bet on professional sports to begin with? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And honestly, just you're breeding a generation of betters. That's all we're doing, is we're just telling them, hey, it's okay when you're young, but once you get to the professional level, it's not okay.
Yeah, like they're just gonna drop it.
That doesn't make any sense. So I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. But again, it's betting, and the betting world is here, and it's not going anywhere. So I honestly just worry that this is going to transfer over to the NFL, and the NFL is just going to say, you know what, our betting policy's gone. Go for it. Bet on
Yeah.
whatever you want.
They're already having problems nipping it in the bud in the NFL already. So let's make it easier for college players before they go into the NFL.
But then then you start stepping on the toes of the people who were banned because they were betting. You know what I mean? Or any of those types of situations. And then your game is now possibly corrupt, because these games could be driven by Vegas and the odds and all of that type of stuff. And so this is a domino that's falling in a string of very, very, very scary dominoes for the sports world, in my personal opinion. But
I would totally agree. And Pete Rose is just
exactly. But I wasn't going to get into that one, because I mean, the man should be in the Hall of Fame.
yes.
I'm sorry. I'll say it. Same with Barry.
I also think
Same
Barry too. As soon as you say Hall of Fame, I think
Fame.
Barry should already be in there.
The statistics alone, they should be in the Hall of Fame. And if we're going to start allowing betting, he needs to go in.
You know, my boy Jeremy is probably spitting out his coffee right now.
I'm sorry. Look, man, I get it. Steroids are bad. That's the only reason why I'm like, no to Barry and Sammy and McGuire. All of them. No. But when you look at his stats before the steroids, I mean, can we deny that he was doing any worse than he was doing with the steroids? All the steroids did was up the home run numbers. That's all it really did.
Well, we'll talk. We had a retirement out of the UFC, a passing in wrestling. Plus, we had a PLE that we haven't talked about since Saturday's Backlash. So join us right after this break. The Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM.
Breaking news out of the NBA. Michael Jordan will be joining NBC's coverage of the NBA as a special contributor starting this fall. Marks return to the network that originally broadcast NBA games, and with Jordan's involvement coinciding with their renewed coverage. We'll get to see Jordan.
That's interesting. Okay. I love that they're able to at least condense these goats into, commentating for at least a year. Because I mean, and as much as Tom Brady has gotten a lot of grief for his style, again, I know I get why people don't like him, but he's also doing this job with a massive, piece of it being held from him. If you haven't been in the media world and don't know how this works, production meetings are what happen before you go on air, where they literally tell you all of the information, all the statistics that they get told, like, or that they tell us on air, all of the special stuff that they know that you usually don't, or things that are given to them. It's all given to them during the production meetings, which Tom Brady is not allowed to go to because he's a partial owner of the Raiders. So everything you hear from Tom is basically off the top of his head and from what he knows and his football intelligence. So this is basically what we could potentially be getting with Michael as well, because let's not forget Michael is partial owner of the Hornets. So I don't know exactly if they're going to have limitations on what Michael can do, but in order that's what kind of makes it unique, in my opinion, is that you are getting a look into the mind of one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, to do it in their sport. So even if it seems that it's not as good as some of these other guys, just remember that they're doing it by themselves while everyone else is having a team of like 15 to 20 to make them look good.
Well, going to the UFC, legendary UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo announced his retirement after his loss over the weekend.
That was interesting. I did not expect that at 3:15. I didn't get to watch a whole ton of the pay-per-view because I was out doing Mother's Day things. But Jose is one of those guys that I've watched for a long time. He's a really, really fun fighter. And for him to say that his heart's just not in it anymore really kind of broke my heart. But it also shows that a long, long, long career at this, it wears on you. I mean, he was 32-10 in his career overall. He had a 20+ career in MMA with, I think it was 14 in the UFC alone. I mean, he's easily going to go down as one of the better bantamweight and featherweight fighters in probably the UFC's history. But when we're talking about guys who potentially will come back from their retirement, I could see Aldo coming back for one last fight, because
this is his second retirement, right?
I think so, yeah. And honestly, he keeps saying, I might come back. I might come back. When you hear the might in the word right there, the seed of doubt, it always grows. We see Manny Pacquiao coming back after a short retirement as well, coming back to the world of boxing. So is it out of the ordinary, or at least out of the norm, that this could potentially happen? No. So, I mean, whether it does or not, obviously we will see. The guy's getting up there in age.
I was going to say he's pushing 40.
I don't know if Dana is going to allow him to keep doing this. Like, not necessarily keep fighting, but the whole retirement dance. So he may be told this time, hey, if you're going to retire, you're going to retire, and we're calling it this time. So it's heartbreaking to see, especially going out on a loss like that he honestly could have won. And I don't know how many of you guys watched UFC 315 over the weekend in Montreal, but that fight was very much back and forth. And I think he lost it in the third round. There was 3.5 minutes left, and he connects with a beautiful knee, but doesn't capitalize on it. Like, he tries to rush him at the last second, and it just doesn't work out. He ends up losing position and eating a couple elbows. And I think that's what swayed the unanimous decision, is the fact that you had it in your hand. You had a knockout right there, and you just let it go. And I think that also shows, just like what he said after the fight, his heart's not in it. That killer instinct that you usually see out of Aldo in his youth and many of these UFC fighters is not there. And honestly, it cost him the fight. I think he sees that just as much as anybody. So that's unfortunate to see, but we'll see if his retirement actually holds up this time.
And sad news out of wrestling. Hardcore pro wrestling legend Sabu died over the weekend at the age of 60. AEW and WWE both confirmed the passing. Just weeks before his death, he had his retirement match,
Right.
which I didn't get to catch.
I mean, there's video that's been going around ever since the match. It was at a independent wrestling promotion. I can't remember the name of it at the
I think
moment.
it's Spring Break 9.
Something like, well, I think that
Or
was
that's
the
the
name
PLE,
of,
yeah.
of their pay-per-view, but I'm not sure what the actual wrestling organization's name was.
I remember him, like you say his name. I remember him in ECW in
That's
the
the
90s.
majority of what you would remember him from. He had a very short stint in the WWE and AEW for a minute as well. But he is mostly known as the nephew of the Sheik, and obviously his time with ECW in just hardcore matches going against RVD was a big one.
That's the one I remember. Him and Taz.
And Taz, yeah, he had a great run against Taz. Honestly, he was one of my favorite guys to watch when it came to barbed wire matches because he was so good at just finding ways and unique ways to bring it in. And honestly, if you watch the videos of his retirement match from a couple weeks ago, was full barbed wire. We're talking about a 60-year-old man jumping into a bed of barbed wire. I didn't want to see it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm glorifying this, but for a 60-year-old man to be able to do that, I mean, unfortunate of the passing that, a couple weeks later. Does it say what he passed of? That's the one thing that I
just
can't
says
find.
undisclosed.
Okay, so we'll probably figure that out in the days to come, but it is another of wrestling's just legends that unfortunately have passed in recent days, or I'm sorry, in recent years, I should say. And at least he got his retirement match. That's what I want to say, because for a lot of these guys, that last hurrah is everything. And for him to be able to go out on his terms, you know what? Maybe that's the way he wanted it. And from what I've seen in docuseries, especially like people talking about him or talking to him about his career or the way he likes to work, I think he did. I think he most likely went out the way he exactly wanted to go out.
Of course, he wanted to finish that last match. But after this break, we'll wrap up the show. We'll recap Backlash, of course, and preview tonight's Raw right here, the early bird special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. Final segment of the day.
Final text says, it shouldn't be the Cowboys and Eagles. I would have much rather seen the Commanders and Eagles.
Honestly, especially after what we saw last year, I 100% agree with you. I didn't even think about it until Sparky had told me of your text in between the breaks and whatnot. But I agree with you 100%. I think that it should absolutely be the Eagles and Commanders, but that's just how the NFL rolls. They see the bigger rivalry as obviously being the Eagles and Cowboys.
Money, money, money.
Yeah, and that's what it really boils down to, is how much money they can make off of this game. So unfortunately, one edges out the other.
And Backlash was Saturday.
Live from St. Louis, Missouri. Honestly, not bad. Not
It
not a
was
bad
better than I
PLE.
was expecting.
I had a couple disappointing notes. I mean, the fact that Lyra Valkyria walked out with that belt bugs me.
Yeah.
It really, truly bugs me, because what are we doing with her? Like, we have just been floundering these mid-card belts, and you have a perfect opportunity to get it on a wrestler who could potentially take it and just put some, not, I don't want to say put some value into it, but you know what I mean? Like,
As
put
they
some
shook
teeth
hands
into
at the
it.
end. And, me and KG were texting throughout that, and we weren't expecting a good match out of that one. We were all thinking, okay, this is probably
The weakest of the night.
the
most
bathroom
likely.
break type
Yeah.
match. And it was actually a good match. I enjoyed it, but I was surprised, as we all agreed on that one. We all thought, Becky was going to take the title, but, I also thought that Bailey was going to come out somehow
And help
and
out.
interrupt, because after Becky said that she's the one that jumped her, I thought it was a total setup for it.
I'm glad that they don't do that as often, because Triple H has really figured out that you don't need interruptions in every single match. Let the performers in ring tell the story, not just somebody from outside, kind of a thing.
Which I'll agree, because all I heard was leading up to it was, it's Goldberg. Goldberg's going to come out.
Yep.
Goldberg's going to come out. And thank God he didn't.
Honestly, yeah, because that was another one that I was going to highlight, is Pat McAfee actually put on a show. And I don't mean, like, he did get beat up. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he got chopped to hell.
I shared
But
that
he
picture
earned his-
too. That
yeah,
was
he
hilarious.
earned his chops, pun intended.
He did.
And absolutely won everybody in the wrestling world over the weekend with his match against Gunther. I'm glad it ended the way it ended too, because it couldn't end with Pat winning. Like, it
No.
just genuinely couldn't. I was kind of surprised we didn't get our Goldberg at least mention or showing, but I'm guessing that they're just building this up for Gunther going forward. The only
I
part
thought
of it,
for sure somebody was going to interrupt in that match.
see, but I'm glad you brought this up second, because both that and the Becky Lynch Lyra Valkyria match both had a weird twist at the end, which was the heel showing respect to the face. That doesn't happen. That's a really weird thing to see, especially happening twice in one pay-per-view. So that's kind of what really made me confused. And it's especially to two people that really don't deserve that yet. Like, I love Pat McAfee, I do, but Gunther's character of being the ring general and not allowing this kind of, tomfoolery to happen within professional wrestling, to just shake the hand of Pat McAfee, who is known to be a goofball. It doesn't really fit the character very well. And I don't know. I mean, again, as I stated earlier, for me, jury's still out with Lyra until she can wrestle anybody else besides Becky Lynch well.
Yeah.
Anybody else.
She's got a lot of botched moves throughout the last couple months, or since really winning the title.
And the only reason she looks good in these matches against Becky, and I shouldn't say the only reason, but one of the main reasons why she looks great against these matches against Becky is because Becky can lead her and Becky can actually make it look good. So it's like, I need to see her do that against someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will be able to give her flowers and say she deserves the title. But
And
until
the
that happens,
announcers
I can't.
drool all over, she's beating everybody. She's beating everybody.
Which she is, but that's kind of the way that that's what I don't understand about it, is why? Like, she isn't really better than a lot of these other women. And honestly, I think it would be better for her story to lose it and have to fight for it back again. That's just me, but that's my thought process. The rest of the PLE, though, was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, obviously the main event, John Cena and Randy, lived up to the hype. and we got an emotional send
that.
off for John as well from the people of St. Louis.
And
Really,
that was tough.
the fans were split all throughout. You even got the "you can't wrestle" chants, and then the other side, the "yes he can" chants. Like this is really starting to seem a little weird to me, because you can tie it together with Dom Mysterio at the same time. Because for those of you who don't watch wrestling, Dominic Mysterio, who's the son of a longtime legend, Rey Mysterio, luchador, and probably one of the greatest luchadors that at least television wrestling has ever seen. I won't say lucha libre has ever seen, but television wrestling for sure. But these guys were so hated. Dominic, anytime he put up a mic to his face in the last 2 years, would be booed so loudly by the fans that it would drown out anything he had to say with the microphone.
Promos. Yeah.
Now these people are cheering his name, and literally anytime he's anywhere near to a camera, it's roars of approval. Same with John Cena.
Yeah, there's definitely some middle of the ground where people don't know who to root for.
Right.
It was the same thing with the last PLE with Roman and CM Punk and Seth. They're all cheering for each other.
Right.
They're like, well, who do you want to win? And it was the same thing when Orton came out. It wasn't as loud. I was expecting, since it was his hometown, but
them all singing his song though was really cool.
The end of the Cena match where, he did pull off the win after R-Truth helped. And I saw the press conference afterwards where he put R-Truth through a table. And now there's rumors going along where, Cena might fight R-Truth at Saturday night's main event in a couple weeks.
That's what we need at Saturday night.
That's what we're going to get. But the other match was the Fatal 4-Way, which was a hell of a match. And I was going to ask you, that's the only reason I brought it up, is who the hell is Jeff Cobb?
Okay, so Jeff Cobb, for those of you who follow but don't know who this guy is the next in line. He's not a part of the family, okay? He's not a bloodline member. He is from Honolulu, Hawaii, and, is Samoan in that way. But he's actually, I think, Filipino mostly. I know his mom's from the Philippines. He is a fantastic amateur wrestler that has just been signed to the WWE and is moving in. He's got a long, long history with Jacob Fatu. And they've worked together for a very, very long time, along with the rest of the Samoan family, which is why he's joining this bloodline situation, because he has a rapport with the family and they all love him like family, much like a Sami Zayn situation. From what I understand, though, he's not actually part of the family blood-wise. So it's just going to be, I think this is Solo's new enforcer, now that Jacob is kind of leveled up and is no longer that guy. And it's going to lead to what I believe most likely another splitting of the bloodline, or at least of Jacob splitting off to do his own solo thing, because he has really taken off in the industry and is probably, if not the most popular wrestler in the WWE right now, he's definitely top 5.
Well, it's definitely, we're going to hear more about it, because he did not look happy.
Not at all. And obviously we're going to hear about it on Friday. But another cool story that I saw over the weekend for you wrestling fans out there, that Karrion Kross t-shirt that you want, Sparky, that we were both hoping to get one. Did you get one?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Because that's now the #1 selling t-shirt in the WWE in all of professional wrestling, which is a great, great sign for Karrion Kross fans, because usually when that happens, massive pushes come right behind it, which means we may actually get to see Karrion Kross's stories actually get put to the forefront and on television.
Finally.
Well, I know matches for Raw tonight. AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. The War Raiders against the Creed brothers. Penta will fight Gable.
Ooh.
Rhea and Io team up with Roxanne Perez and
Julia.
Is that her name?
Yes, it's Roxy and Julia against Io and Rhea, which is going to be an interesting one too. I'm not sure where this is going to be live from tonight, though. But check.
It is from.
Does it say?
Kentucky.
Oh, that's right. He was outside of the Kentucky Derby when he announced this. I'm dumb. But it is what it is. Thank you guys for joining us here on the Early Bird Special. Join us back here tomorrow, 7 to 9 a.m., right here on ESPN Bakersfield. We got to get out of the way for the great Rich Eisen. Sparky, let's get out of here.